We have made it to part 4 of the 2024 Rural Resilience Webinar Series. Before we bring in Montana Ranchers MRBCo to the screen with us tonight, we've got an introduction, then we've got some housekeeping, and we've got some advertising to get through. So let's go ahead and get that rolling. For the introduction, I am Haley Shipp. I started on with the Ranchers Stewardship Alliance in the fall of 22. I am our communications and outreach lead, and then that also spills over quite a bit into the education aspect of what we do. It all works together in that each of the pieces that make up RSA's motto, that is ranching, conservation, communities, they all have space for continued education, whether you're just starting out in ranching, peripheral to the industry, or constantly trying to expand your knowledge. So wherever you fall in that, we're excited to have you here tonight. If it's your first time attending, this is a 4-part series that we do at the start of each year, and we're already planning for 2025. That'll be our 5th year for rural resilience. And it's always great when we can fill a room in real time, but we understand that that isn't always feasible for everyone as schedules get full. For that reason, we do record each of these webinars and post them to our YouTube channel. Angel DeVries is the executive director at RSA, and she's dropping that link into the chat right now. So if you want to look back on this year's rundown, we started out with a cattle market updates from Cattle Facts in January. We rolled into a discussion on introducing goats to the ranch with Carmen Salveson. That webinar actually recently made the cover of the Prairie Star. And then we talked about strategies for rural resilience with Dr. Julia Haggerty last month. Again, you can watch those all on replay via our YouTube channel. Just hit subscribe while you're there. It'll make me really happy. I've been trying to get our subscription numbers up. The Ranchers Stewardship Alliance itself is a nonprofit. Our office is in Malta, Montana. And along with education, we're constantly working in the realm of conservation. We help to put funds from conservation groups, non-government, and government agencies to work for ranchers on the ground as they fulfill ranch conservation projects. That could be reseeding, wildlife-friendly fence construction, well drilling, water pipeline placement, and more. And we work on those projects in Phillips, Blaine, and Valley counties. So if you're in that region and you have a curiosity about a topic, Martin Townsend is your man, as Angel can drop his email into the chat. Martin serves as our conservation coordinator. He is based in Malta. And again, if you're thinking, I have a conservation project, maybe you all can help me with, that is the person that you need to talk to on that. Put simply, we excel in non-traditional partnerships that result in benefits to our region's ranching industry, all within the mindset of creating a future where ranching and rural communities in the northern Great Plains are so successful that ranch families never need to consider selling or transitioning their land out of production agriculture. So housekeeping. Upon entry, your microphone was muted. Please pay attention to keep it that way. Towards the end of the webinar, there will be a question and answer session. We're going to run that via the text chat feature. So you'll actually be typing your question in, and then I will ask that of our guests. So just keep that microphone off for the duration. And then our advertising piece. We do have a really big event that's coming up in Malta. It's going to be on Saturday, May 11th. We'd love for you to join us in person. Jolene Brown, she's known as the Dr. Phil of Agriculture, is going to be presenting the positives of passing it on at the Malta High School auditorium. And it's set up from 9:30 in the morning until 2:45 in the afternoon. So a great day trip. You can get there and get home in the same day. It's going to be an upbeat, eye-opening workshop where you'll learn the top 3 things that must be addressed for the successful transition of a business. We'll talk about it a lot wearing our rancher glasses, because if you haven't figured that out by now, that's who RSA represents. But this is really going to be a great workshop, not only for ranchers, but for farmers and anyone really with any sort of a business who wants to transition that onto a new generation. All of the details can be found on our events page. Angel is dropping that into the chat. If you want to get a taste of what will be presented, make sure to listen to the April Ranch Stewards podcast, in which Jolene and Connie French join me and talk about estate planning with a very candid and conversational fashion. So with that, it's time for our main event. Let's talk about the beef with Montana Ranchers MRBCo. They've got quite the introduction here. Separately, Jessi Olsen, Abby Majerus, and Mariah Shammel are ranchers from central Montana who have 3 operations, 3 significant others, 12 children, including a few dogs, various side hustles, and a whole lot of cows between them. Collectively, they are Montana Ranchers MRBCo, a direct-to-consumer beef business that focuses on providing grass-fed products to families everywhere. Jessi, Abby, and Mariah created the company in 2021 when they realized that they had a shared passion of healthy cows, amazing food, and introducing consumers to the people who grow their food. And then COVID forced the world to realize that grocery stores weren't always super reliable. They may come from different backgrounds and have their own stories to tell, but in combining their individual areas of expertise, the three ranch hers are able to offer a product that is affordable, of great quality, great tasting, and healthy. Jessi, Abby, and Mariah work hard to make sure their animals and grasses are well cared for and to take great pride in knowing that the same beef their families have been enjoying for generations is now taking center stage on dining tables all across the country. They are honored to be a part of America's food and fiber industry, and they love to share that passion with anyone who wants to hear about it. And tonight, that means us. So, ladies, the floor is yours. We'll get your video highlighted.
Montana Ranchers Beef Company is obviously made up by 3 women producers. So my name is Mariah Shammel, and I ranch with my husband and my mother and father-in-law and our 4 kids just north of Lewistown between Winifred and Hilger. And we raise Angus Charolais Cross cows. And we, that's kind of our little ranch in a nutshell. So I'll pass it off to Abby here. Hi, Abby Byerly. Just recently switched the last name from Majerus to Byerly. I ranch with my folks northwest of Lewistown. We run Angus Hereford Cross animals, and I'm the 3rd generation of Majeruses to be on that property.
Hi, thanks for having us. I'm Jessi Olsen. I grew up on a ranch near Grass Range, left for college at MSU Bozeman, and wasn't really planning on or looking to get back into the egg industry, although it always had a place in my heart until I met a strapping young man who happened to be a rancher and involved in the family ranching business. And we got married. Together we have 3 kids and 12 years this year of marriage. And it's been great to get back into, and not that I've ever really left, but just to continue to be a part of that egg tradition and to raise our kids that way. So that's kind of the Olsen Ranch in a nutshell.
So that's kind of our individual stories, but together we're the Montana Ranchers Beef Company. So one of the questions that we always get asked is how we came to be a company, a business together. So we each kind of dabbled in selling our own beef individually. And we kind of, our circles overlap each other. We do each live in surrounding areas of Lewistown, so we're not in the same community, but we kind of have overlapping circles. So we would see each other randomly at different industry events or kid functions or whatever, and make the random joke that we should really just start a business together, because then we could share the marketing and all the business costs that come with starting a business. So we just kind of chuckled and moved on. And then COVID hit, and we realized that the kids weren't in school and things really slowed down a lot. And that also at that same time, people were realizing that food, where their food came from, and weren't liking what they were seeing on the news with all the big feedlots and all that kind of stuff happening. So we decided to take the advantage of that, and we sat down and just kind of made a business plan, a really basic one. And as Abby always says, we kind of build the plane as we fly it. That's kind of been our mantra the entire time. So that's kind of our grassroots. That's where we came from. So that's, yeah. And then from there, we kind of moved on. So Montana Ranchers Beef Company is definitely a side hustle. We are a grassroots farm to table beef business. And our beef, as we mentioned, is raised, processed, and loved in the hills and prairies of central Montana. All 3 of us obviously have obligations from ranch work to family life, and then we all 3 have our own town jobs, in quotes, that we are obligated to as well. All of our products are grass finished, so that is what works for our family operations. We understand that there's a multitude of ways to finish cattle, but that's what works for us, and we enjoy promoting that type of product. We often get people that come to us because they're looking for the health benefits of the grass finished meat, and so we enjoy sharing that benefit, but we also realize that there's a multitude of different ways to finish an animal. We also try to be as open and transparent as possible when it comes to our business. We really think that education and communication are key cornerstones of the business. So we want to be able to interact with any customer, no matter the question that they have, transparent in how the animals are raised, where they're processed, how they're processed, what our business looks like. And that's part of the reason that we agreed to do this presentation here as well. We want to be able to support anyone that's looking to do this to add value to their ranching operation.
So everybody's going to approach this business endeavor differently. Anybody that decides to do this, what worked best for us and fit for us was we decided to become an LLC, which we could have, become a co-op or sole proprietorship or something like that. But LLC was what worked for us. We wanted to be the primary decision makers. We are split 3 ways. So looking down the road, if anybody ever decided this wasn't for them or not working for them, then 2 of the partners could buy the other partner out or vice versa. And we would totally understand because we are all crazy busy. So we get that. But so far it's been just such a good endeavor, and it's really become a sisterhood with the 3 of us and learning this and going on with this new venture. So we really enjoyed that. Like it says in the slide, three minds are better than one. And we have found nobody had a designated job coming into this. We all just kind of found our roles or our niche and came together. And, my side hustle, my town job is I help out a CPA during tax season, which also happens to be during calving. And I don't want to talk about that very often with my husband, but luckily my boss is really flexible. So he lets me take off for a few weeks and help with the busy part of calving and then come back in and help prepare tax returns. But for me, that was a natural role to step into as kind of the treasurer, financial officer of the company. So I do the books, I get all the tax work done at the end of the year, invoicing, stuff like that. Mariah is more of the customer outreach person. She's answering emails. We get questions all the time about our beef and vaccines or hormones and stuff like that. And she's really got that role figured out of how to reply to people and reassure them that our beef is well cared for. Abby here, she's more of the marketing genius. She's always got her ear to the ground. She also kind of keeps Mariah and I planted on firm ground when we get crazy ideas like, hey, let's do this or let's try that. And Abby's like, oh, hold on. No. There's rules, right? So yeah, we all found our role, whether on purpose or that's just our strength, and it's really worked out for us. We share responsibilities as far as getting the beef to the processor, bringing it back. Even if somebody's got to answer a question or make a delivery, we're all pretty good about helping each other out and making sure the job gets done. And it's so nice to have a 3-man or 3-woman, in this case, crew to make sure that all of the bases are getting touched and that at the end of the day, we know that we've answered all the questions and make sure that we've covered all the bases.
So what sets us apart? Oh, that's you. Sorry. That's all right. No, you go ahead. Just like Jessi was saying, we really took this collaborative approach to be able to share responsibilities. That way we aren't, I often tell people that if I were doing this still on my own, I would have hung it up a long time ago. It gives us a sounding board to bounce ideas off each other, to potentially rein it in. I have been labeled the dream killer within our business. I'm usually the one that, taps the brakes a little bit, but it does allow us to split and share those responsibilities. The busy schedules also really help in picking up and delivering. Usually we can piggyback on a doctor's appointment in Billings or a family trip somewhere to get beef delivered within the state. We absolutely want to see more businesses like this. So we're happy to share, kind of our wins or our challenges in getting this type of business set up. There isn't necessarily a playbook for adding a direct-to-consumer business to a production agriculture operation. And that goes for beef or, lamb or any of the other proteins or products. We really truly feel that all agriculture is important. I mentioned that earlier. We're less than 2% of the population now in the US. It makes no sense for us to demonize or sling mud at other approaches to raising animals, to finishing animals, to how we're going to diversify our operations to increase sustainability. So we feel it's very important to, I don't know, cheer on those other businesses. If we have someone that reaches out and they aren't interested in grass finished beef, we're happy to refer them to someone, you know, that's doing something that's more up their alley. It's also been very important within our business to support other rural and women-owned small businesses. So we utilize a email marketing software that is a woman-owned business. Our printing is done, and printing and design is done by a woman-owned business here in Lewistown. Our website that I think Angel will drop in the chat at some point tonight was done by a woman-owned business here in Lewistown, and she also helped us create our e-commerce site that we just launched, and we're really excited about it. We're still definitely figuring it out as well. We also felt it was important to really highlight some great areas of our both our production operations and our business itself and the products. So we're happy to boast that we're all BQA certified, our ranches are, and happy to answer questions about that when people inquire. We do have that logo on our website, and we feature it as often as we can. We also took advantage of the Grown in Montana program, which is an offshoot of the Made in Montana program through the Montana Department of Commerce. It is a free program, and we just feel that green sticker or that green emblem on our product really helps with visibility, but also just adds a layer of quality. Montana, no matter if we're creating, crafts or food products, we're really good at creating high quality things, and we felt it was important to participate in that. So we got started in the Grown in Montana program early on in our business, and we're happy to continue that relationship there. So you're probably wondering, because the title of our presentation was about how to have a beef business when you're surrounded by other people doing the same thing, people that can find beef or any other egg products wherever they look. They've got animal, if they've got family that does it or anything like that. And our products is kind of where that comes into light, because we have to be very, very mindful of the products we sell. To kind of surround that idea that we do not live in an area like a Bozeman or a Kalispell or something that is close to not only a bunch of people, but also a bunch of processors. So we have to keep that in mind as we create our product line. So to begin with, we started with beef shares. So obviously this is people buying halves and wholes and quarters. And this is great because we can show them the Costco effect, right? Like they can, all their cuts are a lower cost if they buy it in bulk, as opposed to buying it by the cut.
And processing is easier.
Yes, and processing is easier. And so that's kind of how we started out. Well, we still do that, and a lot of people still buy our beef shares. But just like the title slide said, it didn't take us long to realize that a lot of people had access to that. So we quickly moved to adding specialty boxes as well. And this we do in 20 and 40 pound quantities, but this is because not everybody has that huge freezer that we just assume everybody has to keep on hand all year long. And so they can buy these smaller boxes if they have a smaller freezer, or if it's just a couple, two people, or a single person. This is a really great thing that they can kind of utilize, and they can just tell us when they need new stuff and we replenish that for them. Another thing that we do is the premium grind. So burger, we always keep burger on hand because everybody loves burgers and tacos. So we're always selling that by the pound. People, no matter what they're doing, obviously they like to have that in their freezer. So we constantly keep that in great supply. Another thing that we moved to was the wholesale account, and that became, we saw kind of I don't know if we saw, I think they actually reached out to us. Yeah. But we've been able to form a relationship with our local grocery store. And so whenever we get animals processed, we're able to bring them fresh primals, and then they can take those primals and make them into whatever cuts they think people want or that they know will sell. So that gives them some latitude to work with stuff. And it also gives us latitude as well, because it's a great resource for us, and people come into the shop, to the meat counter asking for our beef, which is great. And also if they enjoy it, then they'll ask the butcher where it came from, and he's really great about referring them to us. So we've had to kind of change things around as we go, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Another thing that we added was merchandise. So I don't know if you noticed at the beginning of our slideshow, our logo is, we call her Mabel. I don't know where that came. Well, I do know where that came from. It's just a name for a cow. It's actually my daughter's heifer, but she's got a bandana and she's a hardworking girl. But we quickly realized that people loved that picture. And so people were asking us for shirts and tuggers and all kinds of cups. So we created a little sideline with merchandise, and we do have that available. So we do sippy cups for kids and all kinds of stuff with cute little sayings on it. But that's a great, it's kind of a side thing, just because obviously people that don't want to buy beef or whatever can still buy that. So it's not limited to people that need freezers or anything like that. So those are kind of our products. And they're, like I said, we just had to cater them as we've gone and kind of figured out who our clientele is. And with that being said, we'll kind of get into our processor later, but our processor is far away because we have local custom exempt processors here in town. But if we want to sell by the cut, we obviously can't go that route. So we did some shopping around with, which I think Jessi will talk to later. But when we do make our trips to the processor, we have to make those trips really efficient. So we need to make sure that we have freezer space for all the animals that are going in case we don't have that pre-sold. And we need to make sure that we have done our due diligence in trying to get stuff pre-sold, because we generally don't have enough freezer space for all that. So just things that you have to keep in mind when you are dealing with processors that are not in your backyard. I'm not really sure that I should be the one talking about pricing, because I think this is probably the hardest part of our business. I think it's pretty easy to Google, businesses in your area or in Montana to see what people are charging. Probably even just jump on Facebook to see what people are charging for a half a beef, some freezer beef. And I think that it's pretty simple to just assume that, you go the lowest so that you're the one getting picked, or maybe it's you go the highest so that you're really showing that you're offering a premium price. But we quickly found out, and I think are still finding out, that there's so much more that's that has to be incorporated there. So the way that our business is set up, the business is buying live animals from each of the ranches. And then once the business takes ownership of that, then we're handling the processing costs, and that is wrapped into the final cost for the consumer. And then we have determined a price for those animals that the ranch gets paid. We determine that price annually so that we're able to catch the volatility of markets, during pride check season or during the slow times in the summer. And we've also had to kind of set pricing for different types of animals. So that includes the 2-year-old premium steer compared to the older cow that is just cull cow that is being burgered. We also had to consider, overhead. So we don't have a storefront necessarily. We do have a storage facility, but all of that, the electricity, the insurance, that all has to be figured into each individual price. We also have to consider our transit time and our time that we take to organize meat, to sort meat, to create the invoices, to do the social media posts. All of that is wrapped into that final price. Mariah touched on our specialty boxes. We opted to go as low as the 20 pounds, but that was it. We didn't feel that it was worth our time or the price that we would have to pass on to the consumer to be selling a single T-bone steak or a single package of burger. So that's the lowest amount that we felt we could go before we were really compromising the price. Just like any business, I think that we grapple with this often, but we have been working really hard to determine the individual ranch's cost of production for each of those animals so that we know kind of that as our starting point, and then we can bring all of those other things that I just mentioned into that pricing. I don't think that there's necessarily a clear-cut solution to all of that, and that setting your price and forgetting it is probably not an option, especially in a business where we're dealing with very volatile markets. It's not a t-shirt that we're, cranking out and just throw in the press. This is something that's, been in production for 2 years and has had all of those different market influences pressed onto it.
Okay, now the processing part. So, as Mariah mentioned, touched on earlier, it was much more convenient to sell those shares because we have at least 2 different options locally to get those processed. So that's very convenient for us, right? Within 20 miles or 20 minutes of where our ranches are to go get those animals processed. The hiccup or the holdup there was finding out that those smaller quantities were selling a lot easier and much quicker than our larger shares. And so, like Mariah said, we looked around and did some research, and after touching base with rawhide meats and white sulfur, we were really pleased with the feedback they gave us. We were very impressed with their kill pen facility from there all the way to hanging and processing. So actually last Monday, Abby and I took a trip over there to pick up some primals to deliver to the grocery store. And they invited us to come in and just watch our animals be processed, which it was really informative. They let us come right in. We tried to stay out of the way as much as possible, but there were always hooks flying and trays going by, and we never felt like we were truly out of anybody's way. But they gave us so much feedback as far as, you know, if your client or customer is ordering a certain cut, then maybe they don't get the option of another cut. And if you burger this, then you're missing out on this, you know? And so it was really informative to learn that. They showed us our own animals there and the marbling fat content, and seeing them hanging in the freezer and seeing, you know, a grass finished animal will have that really yellow looking distinct fat, and versus a grain finish is going to have that more white fat on the outside. And so that was really great of them to just invite us in. They've been amazing to work with. We went through a lot of trial and error with our label, with our product label, and getting our name and label on every package, which is so great for our marketing value. And they've met us all the way working with us, and they've just really been great. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. We do definitely have to plan ahead, because from Lewistown, it's nearly a 2-hour trip to White Sulphur. And I don't know if you guys have been that way, but they have a good solid 5 to 6 months of winter. So the road is not great, especially when you're hauling a stock trailer and a few critters in the back. So we always plan extra time. I did see that they're doing construction, so hopefully they'll widen that road and give us a shoulder. So yeah, we always plan ahead. We're never taking just one animal there. There's always several that are going and coming back, so that we make it worth our time, our trip, our mileage, because we have to take all of that into account when we're going back and forth. Same with delivery, stuff like that. We really try to plan ahead so that if, you know, sometimes once in a blue moon, we do have to make a special trip just to deliver. But more often than not, like Abby said earlier, somebody's going somewhere. Between the 3 of us and our busy lives, somebody's always headed to Bozeman, Helena, Billings, for one reason or another. So it does make it convenient to fit a delivery drop off in on those trips. So for that, we're grateful.
So looking forward, people kind of always ask us what are we doing kind of to make our business successful? So one of the things that we really think has helped us maintain this business so far is that we're always willing to learn from our customer. We're learning the good and the bad, actually. And they're teaching us concretely, what kind of beef they like, what cuts and how much and that type of thing. But also we're learning how many of them really don't know anything about beef or cows or anything. And coming into that was our number one intent, was to educate our consumers. And so we knew that was part of the game for sure. And we're all with our our degrees in school and our livelihoods before this were very much in touch with educating people on that type of thing, but we had no idea. When the first person came to us and said, yeah, can I get that whole half in ribeyes, please? And I had to like stop myself from my mouth, like, are you kidding me right now? So just that education piece that they kind of teach us as well has been something that's really kept us together and moving forward. Another one is just shifting when needed, which we've talked about before, just that we're constantly having to change. We thought that we were with the shares, and then we had to move to the smaller quantities. But we are also trying always to come up with kind of incentives for different things. Like on the shares, people can completely customize their order. They can talk to the butcher personally and choose what size burger packages they want, what cuts they want, and that type of thing. So we're just always shifting when needed, trying to figure out what people need, what we need to be doing better of, and how to change in the future. Another thing that has sustained us is just recognizing what works and what doesn't. We are all pretty black and white people. And so we're pretty good about just kind of making that line like, nope, that did not make us any money. That didn't work. People didn't like it. It's out. There's not much debate about that. But when there is, it's nice that there are three of us because we can really work through it and discuss it and take votes if we need or do whatever we need to move that forward. But recognizing what works and what doesn't and not just kind of like, well, we'll see how it works. That doesn't really fly so well. So that's really helped us. We're also really able to lean on each other. And I know that, I think it was Abby alluded to it earlier that, or I think it was Jessi, one of the two. I've got a good right here. One that we can always lean on each other if we're missing the boat somewhere, or sometimes an email comes through that I read and then I don't respond to in a timely manner. And luckily one of either Abby or Jessi is reminding me that there's an email waiting for me. Just stuff like that where we all lead really busy lives, like they said, just as everybody does. But we're able to kind of pick up the slack where we're needed. And that's really helped us be successful and stay in our timelines for things. I think the biggest thing though is just standing firm on our priorities, but being willing to be flexible at the same time. So there are certain things that we do not bend on. We are grass fed. People have asked us if we will do grain fed, and we will direct them to somebody else we know of that does sell grain fed. And we don't put that down. We're like Abby said, we support all agriculture, and most of our animals actually do go to a feedlot. This is just our side gig with the grass fed direct to consumer business, but the majority of our calves do go to feedlots in the Midwest. So we're definitely not dogging on that. But for us, the grass fed is just what works for us. We have the space for it, we have the animals for it, and it's just what works for us. That's what we go with it. That's just one of the things that we're not going to bend on. But like I said before, we are flexible at the same time with knowing what we need to change and what we don't. So that's really helped us as we have kind of started this business as we move forward. And hopefully that's kind of what takes us into whatever's next, just being able to work, to be flexible.
I think our processor put a hard no on tomahawk steaks.
Yes.
So that was someone else's decision, but
We're always trying to look at like different cuts and what they're doing. And we have obviously different areas like different things, but that's one nice thing about all the relationships we have, actually, not even with the processor, but we also have great working relationships with our designer, like our web designer. And we also have great relationships with the person that does all the printing and all the our brochures and our cards and all that kind of stuff. And we just like that honest relationship where they will tell us if something does not look good or if it's not working out, or if one of our animals doesn't look good, if it's not cutting correctly, the butcher will call us and say, this animal, like, I don't like this specific cut, so I'm gonna burger it or whatever. But just having that relationship with these different people and willing to be like being able to depend on them and not have to even think twice about it is really, I think, what has helped us as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I think the big thing that we found is to not be afraid to be ourselves in this endeavor. We didn't like specifically come together as three women to start this business. It just turned out that we were all like-minded individuals that had the same dream of making a business like this work. And so as we got together and things started rolling, we had a lot of interest and people inquiring, well, it's really interesting that you're three women ranchers that got together and do this. And well, do you have to ask your husband if it's okay if you do this? Or when you buy the animal from the ranch, do they write the check to your husband or to you? And so we do get a lot of questions about that. And to answer that, no, we write the checks, like if Mariah brings in 2 animals, I write the check to Mariah Shammel. Whether or not that goes in her joint checking account with her husband, I don't know. Lyle, I'm sure would have a say. But we do.
Or would he?
No, it's fun for us not only to have this, but we also all have key roles in our ranches, or in our individual ranches, you know, with the decision making and what's going on there. So we're definitely not the stay-at-home moms, if you will, in the grand scheme of things. We do stay at home sometimes with sick kids and whatnot, but we are all active and know what's going on our ranches. So that helps us carry this over into the business and make it ours. We're also really transparent with what's going on. Abby's been great with social media, as far as sharing our story and letting people know what we do. So we're not the romantic Yellowstone, you know, John Dutton type of thing. We'll share videos and pictures of the kids, you know, knee deep in mud, or us out in the corrals with
No makeup on.
no makeup and probably somebody's snot and somebody's poop. Hopefully it's calf or cow poop, but you never know. And we share that. And I think people like that we share the real nitty gritty, and we're not afraid to show people that it's really not a romantic lifestyle. It's tough work, and we don't get days off. We don't get to stay inside when it's cold out. And to share that with people is invaluable, because a lot of people don't realize that animal caretakers, ranchers don't get a day off. And I think it's fun to share that. So let's see, where else I kind of got off on a tangent there. I think this was mentioned earlier, but we do try to help anybody that's interested in getting into the beginning beef business. We're here to answer questions from top to bottom. We're not afraid to answer honestly. And I forgot to mention, when we did go to White Sulphur, it just so happened that the state inspector was there, and he kind of, you know, stayed in the corner, walked around, and I couldn't help myself. I had to go start chatting with him, and you know, we visited for quite a while, and he said for the time being, he's covering basically the job of 3 inspectors because it's such short supply right now. And he said he's putting 60,000 miles on a month. He lives in Roundup. He drives as far as ecological. And he said it never slows down. And so as I'm sure many of you know, that demand is so great, and we're so limited right now with these inspectors. And that's been one of the drawbacks that we've seen too, for sure. I think that's all I have for that slide.
I was just gonna go off script here real quick. Haley mentioned earlier the mission of Ranchers Stewardship is this sustainability of operations, and really that was one of the reasons that I started selling beef originally, and why we came together was to create another revenue stream for our operations, so that we aren't wholly dependent on that traditional cattle market, that we were able to maybe bring some money into the operation at a less peak time, or to offer prices that maybe were above what you would get at the ring. So I think that this is a great way to diversify income streams for operations. It's not the only way. There's so many options that, you know, I think are viable options for bringing income, agritourism, that sort of a thing. So we're not the experts by any means in the beef direct to consumer beef business, but we're happy to answer questions or point you to resources that we've found. But I would encourage anyone that's like tossing around an idea of bringing extra income into the production agriculture operation to just go for it. There's not really a good time or a less scary approach. I think it is risky, but absolutely worth it.
And to add to that, it's not all roses, that's for sure. I mean, like on an insane market year, like we're looking at this year, where you're seeing, I mean, even locally here in Lewistown, you're seeing these cows go through the ring and they're just bringing great prices. We still have to make that choice. Do we want to take these extra critters into town and get paid right now, and definitely make $1 or $2, or do we want to hold on to them and keep pushing this business? And we might take a pay cut from the business right now for those animals to keep the Montana Ranchers beef business going right now. And we've decided we can go ahead and do that, fortunately, hoping that because, you know, all good things must come to an end. So this incredible market's not going to last forever. So we're hoping that, you know, when it does go down, which is hopefully, you know, let's give it 5 years, right? We can dream. But when it does go down, we can pay ourselves a little bit more than the market would pay us if we took them to the sale ring, and eventually it'll even out. So that's kind of how we've approached that. And luckily we have the flexibility to do that. And I know not everybody does. So that's a big sticking point if things are tight. So,
Which is also a perk of having the three of us, is that things have happened where our animals are up for it to go to the market or to go get slaughtered and something happens. Luckily, somebody else is able to step in and fill that hole. Where the other one wasn't able to. And it's just, we're at different spots kind of in our ranching, which you kind of say, like, Abby just recently got married. They're kind of in the midst of figuring out taking over the place possibly and that kind of stuff. Jessi works with her in-laws, we work with ours. So we just are in different spots, which gives us some more flexibility of filling in the gaps, which is also really nice. So yeah, it just kind of helps when you work together and are able to do different things that when just one person or in other areas you wouldn't be able to. And even the way Jessi's set up is she's able to offer heifers, which is perfect. It works into her system. Abby's able to do steers. So it just is kind of a nice way that it's a good reminder that when people think of market animals, they just think of the big steers, but we have just as much market and people actually requesting heifers as well. Just something to think about.
So I think that's the end of our, you know, structured presentation. We're happy to answer questions.
Terrific. Thank you, gals. And we have had, I know, at least one question pop in. So if anybody has something as they've been watching this that's been bouncing around in your brain, go ahead and type that into chat and then we'll ask it of the gals tonight. So Butch wants to know, how does grass finished work in the winter months?
Yeah, so grass finish, I mean, obviously over the winter months, we're feeding hay. I mean, they're eating some grass, but mostly hay. We actually don't do a lot of slaughtering in the winter months, and we kind of hope, obviously they kind of taste like what they're eating, right? The animal. So we kind of time it so that they are on fresh grass, hopefully, when we do process. With that being said, we did just take some animals in to be processed a couple weeks ago. Obviously, they're coming off of mostly hay. And that is just something that we kind of can't avoid if we're going to keep our numbers up all year long and have that beef available. So we've never had any complaints about it. We're very open about it with our customers about what they're fed and when and all that type of thing. And it has never really been an issue. So we just kind of,
hay, I mean, feeding hay is still considered grass fed, grass finished. So it's all categorized together.
Angel's asking, what seems to be the biggest struggle to get direct to consumer businesses off the ground?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if there's just one.
I'll say just having capital available and ready. We each donated 2 animals to get this up and rolling because none of us, you know, at the time had cash to throw at this thing. And so, but we did have animals that were ready to be processed. And so that first year we each donated 2 just so we'd have some product to start selling with the idea that it'll eventually pay us back. And I think we were all okay with doing that, but capital is huge.
Yeah, that's a great answer. There's some great grants out there. We have taken advantage of that. I can't say that we would be in the same spot right now if we hadn't utilized some of those, but you know, in my day job, I counsel businesses, and sustaining life on grants alone is not a business. So I think this taking flight out of the nest here is going to be a real wake-up call for us, but also something that I think we have a solid foundation now. We were able to kind of get some of those business basics figured out with some grant funding so that we will we'll have a stronger launching point from there.
Yeah, and I noticed yesterday when we did our tech check that you were with a Food and Ag Development Center was where you had yourself parked at. So why don't you go ahead and kind of give a pitch for the assistance that's available through that mechanism?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Haley. So yeah, I work for Snowy Mountain Development. We are an economic development organization based in Lewistown. So we serve the 6 counties right here in central Montana. We also are able to have a food and ag center here. So we are essentially boots on the ground for Department of Agriculture. There's 11 centers across the state. So I know Shaylee Wall in Wolf Point, same role as I am. We're here to help the food, ag, and renewable energy businesses in Montana, the entrepreneurs. So our services are free to help you work through a business plan, to work on some cash flow statements for a business that's already in the works. We can help you identify some potential grant funding to help your business. If you're going to go to the bank for a loan, we can work through that process for you. So we're really here to help those food, ag, and renewable energy businesses, whether you're a startup or expanding or just trying to sustain.
So I hopped onto the website as you all were talking, and you can purchase shares in a whole beef, and then it says shipping cost determined later or billed separately, something like that. And I'm working from a retail store tonight where I often have to ship clothing, and just the difference in price in shipping a 18-ounce package that has clothing in it makes me stressed out. So I cannot imagine trying to determine shipping when we're looking at things that at the smallest are 20 pounds. How do you all navigate that part of things?
So like Jessi said, a lot of times we're traveling around the state. So a lot of what we do is we do deliver, which is our favorite way to do things, actually, just because we can meet the customer and really talk one-on-one with them. But we do also do shipping. And actually our state inspected has recently turned to USDA.
Yeah.
So we're allowed to do that now. But it is expensive. But what we have found is most people don't care about the shipping cost. Every time we send out a shipping quote and I'm like hesitant and I'm panicking and sweating about how much it is, sometimes it's more than the actual beef. And more often than not, they're just like, okay, yep, sounds good. Thanks. Let us know when you ship it. So yeah, that's just kind of how it rolls out there. And then we have a local shipping center that we work with that helps us package the beef if we need. We also, when we came into the business, there was somebody else kind of going out of their own. And so were able to purchase some reusable coolers that people can send back in the mail to us when they're finished with them, so that we don't have to deal with the one-use plastic and waste that way. So it's a learning experience with the shipping, but people don't seem to care.
We really pride ourselves on getting Central Montana beef and Central Montana freezers first. So I'd say the majority of our marketing is very concentrated in Central Montana, and then it kind of grows out to those more metropolitan areas. We haven't done as much shipping, I think, as we thought initially. And that becomes a real one-on-one conversation with the potential customer. We've had some inquiries from like Connecticut. We usually do some Google searching ourselves, and we're like, turns out there's a direct to market beef business, 10 miles from you. I'd check them out first. And that's really just because of the volatility. Once it leaves our hands at the shipping center, you have no control over what happens to that animal. And we don't spend the time 2 years with those animals to have it potentially, like sit on an airplane and be forgotten about or something like that. So we really, we work with that customer one-on-one to make sure, like, you're going to be home on Thursday at noon, right? To pick it up. Like, we just don't want anything to go to waste. So the shipping hasn't been as big of a deal. I think with this new e-commerce site, we might see more of that, and we're gearing up to be able to handle that. But it's very much a one-on-one conversation with that customer.
So you mentioned that your state inspector is now a federal inspector, and that
I think so.
And so that means it can cross over to a different state, correct? If it's a federal inspector?
Yeah, there is kind of a mid-tier option. State inspectors that have that cooperative interstate shipment endorsement can ship out of state as well. But just like Jessi was mentioning, most of these state processors that are trying to go to USDA have checked all the boxes as far as their facility. It's waiting on that like human inspector to show up and want to live in White Sulphur or Ekalaka or Forsyth or wherever. That seems to be really the bottleneck in the processing world right now.
Employees. Everybody's feeling that.
Exactly.
So what does the future look like for Montana Ranchers Beef Company? Are you looking at big dreams? Are we just sustaining? What are you guys?
I think especially this year, we're just looking at maintaining. We want to maintain our numbers. And with this drought and everything we've had, we did have to cut back on numbers, and we just couldn't keep the cattle that we wanted to, so we had to sell some. And so we didn't have the choices that we would have liked to have had as far as keeping critters to finish and sell to the business. So this year is definitely a maintain year. We're not going to send as many to the processor, but then we've all started to really grasp the planning that this takes. And so I think next year is going to be a bigger year for us, and hopefully continuing forward, we'll, add anywhere from 5 to 10 animals per year until we can't stand it anymore, and we need to hire help. And at that point, I think we better go back to maintaining.
I think, we set this up as a side hustle on purpose. And there's young kids in the mix right now. We were just talking about baseball practice. So I think it will stay a side hustle for the foreseeable future. This isn't something that I think any of us want to make our full-time job at this point, but also, not off the table completely. When kids are in high school and can drive themselves places, it will shift, but we're willing to explore that when it comes. But for now, it's going to remain our side hustle for sure.
There's also other spots that not just beef, I think, where our business has taken off where we really didn't anticipate it.
Yeah.
One of which is doing this type of thing. When we started this business, no joke, we did not even think about us being a woman-owned business. We were just like, oh, we're three, whatever, like that. We thought the name was cute because it was just, we were all three women, obviously. And then it was like people started calling us to do presentations and to talk about what it's like to be a completely woman-owned business with three of us working together. How could that possibly happen with three females? And so that kind of has been surprising to us, but that's something that's really expanding, that we've been doing a lot of that kind of thing. And then also we've always talked about doing other things, like we're constantly chattering between us. So we're always like, we should do a podcast someday, or we should do this, which we probably never will. But there's all kinds of opportunities anymore with all this stuff. So it's hard to say what we'll get into, but definitely a maintenance year for the beef end of things.
Have your kids gotten into it? Is this a good place where you can teach them a little bit more about work ethic? And I'm thinking it's probably, they can help unload boxes and things like that.
Yeah.
And it can give them some good physical tasks that they maybe can't be in the corral with a large animal, but they can do some of these smaller physical things.
Yeah, there's definitely, my daughter's always asking if she calls us girlfriends. So she's always wondering if she can be girlfriend number 4. And so it's just fun to watch that kind of thing. But actually Jessi and I do have 3 of our kids do show animals, for 4-H and stuff. So they are in the corrals and stuff, helping us with all that stuff. And then the little kids they do help us with moving packages around, and they're always amongst us. It's actually a rarity that the 3 of us are sitting here with no children around us. So they're a constant part of us, and they call Abby Aunt Amby pretty much. So it works out well.
So if we have a family operation that's looking at implementing this, any key advice that you would give to them as they get started?
Yeah, I think, I would look at ways you can collaborate, partnerships that you can create. I do think that our situation is unique as far as the 3 ranches working together, but I don't think it necessarily has to be. We're seeing a increase in cooperatives, and I think that that's a great route to go. I'm sure you guys are aware of Cole Mannix and the Old Salt. I think that that's another great business model to look at. I think when we start to think, we've been in the commodity market for so long, that paradigm shift to selling our product direct to consumer is sometimes a really big hurdle to overcome. So, maybe it's not something you take on yourself, but you get some neighbors together, you get some family members together to go to approach that business.
I think also, from the beginning if you're willing to outsource, because we were really firm from day one that we wanted to be able to use our own animals from our own ranches. And we have had offers from other ranchers saying, hey, I'll have some extra open heifers that don't preg up in July. If you want to buy a couple, give me a call, let me know. And while that is tempting when our animal supply is short, we've really decided to stand firm on this thing and make sure that they're coming from our own ranches. Not saying that rancher doesn't do anything right by his own cattle, just that that's what we decided we want to do. And so if you're okay with outsourcing, which we don't have anything against, of course, be willing to, be ready to make that decision. Do I want to just pull from my own herd, or me and my partner's herd, or would we buy some heifers or some steers from the neighbor or the other rancher who's got some extra that didn't make the semi, so kind of know what you want to do and know what your goals are there, because I think that'll take you a long way in where you end up.
I'm going to wear my other hat real quick and say, work on a business plan, have some kind of direction that you want to go. Have that conversation with your accountant, have that conversation with a lawyer. Just doesn't have to be extensive, but just, do your due diligence on the front end.
I'm going to go back to one thing really quickly, just because it's been a huge thing for our business, is when we decided to just have animals from our 3 ranches. The reason was because so that we know exactly where those animals are coming from. And so that people can, when they ask us about an animal or what they're looking for, we can tell them exactly what that animal has gone through in its life, if it's had antibiotics, if it hasn't. And at the time, we didn't realize that was such a big deal, kind of. But now looking back, we get questions all the time on, do your animals have antibiotics? Do you guys use hormones? What about mRNA? We get asked these questions all the time. And luckily, we're able to just, we have these answers obviously kind of stockpiled, but we can also oh, you guys don't want hormones. Well, this animal didn't have it, because we each do different things on our places, and we're able to fit that. But like Jessi said, just kind of sticking to those ideals and not moving away from them. I don't think we realized just how important that was when we started, as we know now.
It's really easy to have one customer call up and say, well, I was wanting grain finish. And so we're like, well, okay, maybe we'll grain finish a couple of animals. And then the next customer calls and they want something different. I think it's really easy to get pulled in the customer leading the business rather than the owners leading the business.
So you had mentioned the labels for a second and having that Montana grown stamp now as part of it. On your label, do you dictate which ranch that's coming from amongst you 3, or is it all just a Montana Ranchers beef label?
It's just the Montana Ranchers beef label. If someone wanted to know, we could tell them, but it's not, what do I want to say, publicized, advertised.
And it's actually never been asked.
No, we offer, we let people know that if they want to, I don't know, come visit the ranch where the animal is raised, they can. We all have photos of the animals, on the hoof. But yeah, no one's ever really asked. It's been very enlightening, I'd say, being just a beef cattle rancher, seeing the animal live and then not really knowing what happens after that, to learn the other half of that has been an incredible opportunity to see that final product of what we're working on for, a couple years.
I think that goes all around too, because we mentioned that the butcher that we have a Town and Country takes some of our primals, and we've been warning them for 2 years now since the drought. Jessi mentioned that we all had to sell off quite a few during the drought, both because we didn't have grass and also because we had to make the bottom lines on our own ranches run as well. So any extra animal we had to sell. Anyways, we've been warning him for 2 years that our numbers are going to be down and he's not going to have a constant supply of primals. And so he knew, and he's been, yep, that's good. Well, now it's actually happening, and you can tell he was he didn't quite realize, I don't think. So it's kind of been good, even because he sees beef coming in all the time, but he sees it coming in from Cargill and all these huge places coming in with that constant supply, and it always looks the same and it's wrapped the same. And so it's good for him too, I think, and he's actually thanked us before, because each animal that we bring in is also different. It's different size T-bones, it's different size this and different size that. And he recognizes that, and he's, he tastes it all, he takes it home and makes sure that it all tastes the same. It's great. So it's just been a great learning experience for everybody, even in situations where we thought he would know all this, but even he is kind of learning new things. So that's great too.
Well, Abby, one of the things that you brought up was the calculator on your website, and we haven't talked about this yet. And I just brought it up, and it's a really neat tool. I guess I just instinctively think I know how much beef to buy, but I'm not putting this much consideration into it. So walk us through this calculator on your website and what your consumers are getting from it.
Yeah, you bet. We worked with Snowy Mountain Marketing here that did our website to develop a tool that would essentially help customers better understand how much, is the right size for them and their family. We get that buying a share or buying that much beef at once is probably intimidating and really easy to kind of over or underestimate how much space it takes, how much I'm going to consume. what cuts I might like. So we worked with her to develop a calculator that would walk people through, the size of freezer that you have, how many people you plan to feed, how often you eat beef, and then it points you to the variety of products that we have. Maybe a share is more your style, an eighth share, or those smaller boxes. So yeah, it was a fun project. It was, I think, pretty innovative, and hopefully it's helped people better understand what would be a good fit for them, and maybe lead them into, a larger purchase later. Maybe the 20-pound box means that they're eating a little bit more beef than they would if they were buying it every day or every trip at the grocery store. And so then the next time they come back, maybe they're getting a share.
And the calculator let me put in my 9-month-old as a half a kid.
Nice.
So I appreciate that. He doesn't eat the same as a whole kid. So
And now I have a 10-year-old that eats the double cheeseburger at dinner and a 4-year-old that asks for steak every night. I'm like, are you kidding me?
great. Well, this has been a tremendous presentation, gals. I don't think it looks like we've got any more questions from the audience. So as we wrap up, thank you so much for joining us. And Angel had put your website into the chat there, but do you have socials that people can follow you on as well?
Yeah, we're on Instagram and Facebook. I think Instagram is just Montana Ranchers Beef.
MT Ranchers Beef.
MT Ranchers Beef, that's right. Hopefully in this maintaining year, we'll see a little bit more action on the social media. That's on me. But our email is also on that website. So I would encourage folks, whether they're interested in purchasing some beef or you have questions about starting a beef business, by all means, please reach out. We're happy to either help you out or point you in a direction.
And Abby is a great resource because she's got her ear to the ground and she knows her knowledge is invaluable.
Yeah, if you're looking for some startup help or something like that, I'm happy to answer questions about grant funding, that sort of a thing.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And thank everyone for joining us tonight as well as we wrap up again what is the last of the series for this year. Now, as I say that, I should say the regular season, because I can't tell you that something else is not going to pop up and surprise us and we'll decide to do a webinar about it. But Angel did just drop into the chat our post-event survey, and we would really love if you could take a minute to interact with that. Let us know how we did, ways that we can do better. We're really open to constructive criticism. But especially on there, we would love to know what you would like to hear about next year, because we're trying to get that schedule put together, and we would really like to know what topics you want to hear about, because that's why we're here, is to bring that education to you. I know we did have one person that apologized for coming in late, and we let them know in chats, but these are all up on our YouTube channel. I'll get this edition uploaded either tomorrow or over the weekend, so we'll have it uploaded there so you can go and check back to that. And it's a great resource as well for not only this year's Rural Resilience series, but we've also got some Rural Resiliences from years past. And again, May 11th, Jolene Brown in Malta. It is my personal goal to get, I've been saying 150 people in the room. I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're really trying our darndest to get a lot of people to this, because we know that by and large, estate planning and succession planning is one of those hurdles that's really, really hard for ranchers, farmers, anybody in small business to get going on. We just had Jolene for our podcast a couple of weeks back, and one of the things that she said that struck with me was that do not let perfect be the enemy of really good. And I think so often as we do these things, we think they're going to be tied up in this nice little bow and they're just going to be done and put away. And it's not the case. It's messy and it doesn't feel good. And you can still put it together in that surrounding and have it be really good. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to work for you and for your operations. So we'd love to have you. The registration is on our website, ranchstewards.org. Just go on over to the events page. We're working on possibly having a digital component, but we can't guarantee that just yet. And we would love to see you in person, because it always creates such a sense of community when we can all be in one space. So with that, we'll call it an evening. Thank you so much for joining us.